In Dalton, Illinois, political drama isn't new, but under Mayor Tiffany Henyard, it's exploded into full-blown chaos. Known for her fiery confrontations and constant sparring with trustees, Henyard has always divided public opinion. But the latest village board meeting didn't just stir controversy, it blew the lid off a simmering crisis. What should have been a routine session turned into something straight out of a reality show, shocking even her staunchest critics. The meeting, originally set for Village Hall, had to be moved to the local park district due to an unexpected flood of concerned residents. But they didn't come for boring policy updates. They came to witness the mayhem firsthand. Tensions had been building for months, clashes over appointments, budget showdowns, and swirling misconduct rumors. That night, it all came to a head. From the moment Henyard took the mic, it was clear she wasn't there to collaborate. Her tone, her presence, everything screamed control. Instead of addressing the village's problems, she hijacked the platform, turning the meeting into a one-woman show. The live stream had to be cut. Spectators watched, stunned, as order unraveled. It wasn't government, it was theater. And Dalton residents could feel it. The breaking point came with a move no one expected. In what seemed like a deliberate attempt to sabotage the official session, Henyard suddenly announced her own official meeting back at Village Hall. Only 2 trustees showed, far from a legal quorum. When it fell flat, Henyard didn't concede. She stormed out, jumped in her car, and raced back to the park district where the real meeting was still in progress. Then came the moment that defined it all. Henyard barged in and seized attention with one defiant line. "I am the mayor of the village of Dalton." But instead of applause, she was met with cold silence. Some in the crowd turned their backs. The energy shifted. Her declaration didn't command respect. It exposed desperation. In that moment, Henyard didn't look like a leader. She looked like a performer losing control of the script. What had started as internal friction between the mayor and trustees had now infected the whole community. The crowd's patience had snapped. Many who once supported Henyard now saw a different version of her, one obsessed with power over progress. And the dysfunction wasn't just political anymore, it was personal, it was public, and it was growing. Then, the legal hammer dropped. A judge issued a temporary restraining order, stripping Henyard of the ability to make key appointments without board consent. Her authority had been officially reined in, but instead of pausing to reflect, Henyard pushed harder. The more her influence waned, the more aggressive she became. Collaboration vanished. Dialogue died. Dalton had become a village under siege, from within. Let me know if you want this merged into your ongoing script or need additional scenes broken down this way. A mayor at war with her own board, trustees scrambling to keep things from falling apart, and residents wondering if their town could ever recover. What was once called strong leadership had become a warning sign of dysfunction, not strength. With every dramatic outburst, every power grab, Tiffany Henyard's reputation shifted. She was no longer seen as a force for progress. She was the chaos. The feud between Henyard and the trustees wasn't hidden anymore. It exploded in public view. As she stood behind the mic, trying to reclaim control, the room turned cold. Not applause, but silence. Not respect, but rejection. The hope that once surrounded her had vanished. In its place was growing resentment. Henyard hadn't just divided the board, she'd shattered Dalton's trust in its own government. The latest board meeting was supposed to be routine. Instead, it spiraled into another ugly chapter of Dalton's collapse. Henyard's need to dominate, her refusal to follow protocol, turned a civic gathering into a circus. Her presence no longer calmed the room, it ignited it. And people were starting to ask the hardest question yet. Could their town actually survive her leadership? Week after week, the drama outpaced any actual progress. Henyard's infamous line, "I am the mayor of the village of Dalton," had become a punchline, a meme shared with disbelief. That night, the tension hit a new high. She attempted to install a new police chief right then and there, triggering outrage. As the crowd erupted, she tried one last trick, declaring the entire meeting illegal. But no one was buying it. The greasy room exploded. Shouting drowned everything out. After just 7 minutes, Henyard gave up and stormed out. The boos followed her all the way to the door, but then came the real shock. Police officers moved in to restore calm outside. Rumors flew, a possible altercation between Henyard and a local official. Whispers became gasps. And then, it happened. Mayor Tiffany Henyard was arrested, right there. In front of the town she once promised to lead into a better future, the same woman who once stood for change now stood in handcuffs, surrounded by flashing lights and stunned onlookers. The night had started with a fragile chance at unity, but ended in disgrace, scandal, and disbelief. The damage was done. The arrest wasn't just the end of a meeting, it was the climax of a downward spiral. Months of tension, power plays, and broken trust had led here. Dalton wasn't just divided, it was deeply wounded. What had started as a hopeful new chapter had collapsed into a crisis no one could spin or deny. And now, more than ever, the people were left asking, how do you rebuild from this? Let me know if you'd like a final paragraph that wraps this into a YouTube script ending or connects it with an ongoing investigation or broader theme. The arrest of Mayor Tiffany Henyard wasn't just the conclusion of a chaotic meeting, it marked the end of an era. The woman once hailed as a bold reformer had become a symbol of scandal and collapse. As she was led away in handcuffs, Dalton residents stood in disbelief. The hope they once had in her leadership now felt like a distant, naive memory. What started as fierce politics had devolved into crisis, dragging a small Illinois village onto the national stage. Henyard's fall wasn't abrupt. It was the slow, public undoing of a mayor who led with defiance and ruled without limits. That moment, her arrest, was a turning point for Dalton. For years, dysfunction had been building, replacing progress, with spectacle. But this time was different. This wasn't just another boardroom spat or headline, it was a rupture. She had barged into the meeting trying to force appointments through, including naming a new police chief. But her authority had already crumbled. The crowd had stopped listening. Her voice, once powerful, was drowned out by a community fed up with being ignored. As her final act unraveled, the public's reaction was loud and unforgiving. No cheers, no deference, just boos and anger. Then came the image that would define her legacy. Mayor Henyard, flanked by law enforcement, marched out of the room, arrested in front of the very people she was elected to serve. Her time in office didn't end with a peaceful transition. It ended with sirens. What followed wasn't just shock. It was collective mourning for what Dalton could have been. From day one, Henyard governed with confrontation. She bypassed trustees, sidelined procedures, and made critical decisions alone, especially on policing and legal matters. To many, this wasn't just strong-willed leadership, it was betrayal. Dalton gave her power, and she used it to break the rules, not build the future. Even when courts tried to check her authority, she painted herself as the victim, a lone fighter against corruption. But the people had heard enough. The lawsuits, the spending, the power grabs, it all came crashing down. That night, the illusion shattered. She wasn't removed by a recall or an election, but by force. Her downfall, though dramatic, felt inevitable. What began as a campaign of hope became a warning to others. Power without accountability always ends the same way. Henyard had isolated allies, ignored the rule of law, and ultimately alienated the people who once believed in her. Now Dalton stands in the rubble of her legacy, unsure of what's next. Can Dalton recover? Can its residents learn to trust leadership again? Those questions now hang over a town that's been pushed to its breaking point. Because this wasn't just political drama, it was institutional collapse. And still, even as pressure mounted, Henyard played the role of the embattled hero. She took to social media, casting herself as the last honest leader standing, while dismissing the outrage as a smear campaign. But the more she leaned into that narrative, the more disconnected she became. The more people dug, the more disturbing the picture became. Reports of extravagant travel, luxury hotels, and taxpayer-funded expenses flooded the conversation. For a struggling town like Dalton, these revelations were a slap in the face. Accusations of misused funds and self-indulgent leadership started replacing sympathy with anger. The facts weren't going away, and neither was the damage. Still, Henyard remained defiant. She waved off the allegations as nothing more than a smear campaign, accusing her critics of conspiring to destroy her credibility. But leaked documents and first-hand accounts told a different story. The financial mismanagement, whether by negligence or design, became impossible to ignore. Trust was evaporating, and as federal and state agencies, including the FBI, launched formal investigations, the pressure began closing in. Henyard's grip on power was slipping, and fast. Even under that mounting scrutiny, she styled herself as the people's mayor. A handful of loyal supporters clung to her narrative of a lone woman standing against a rigged system. They rallied on social media, convinced this was all political theater. But even that loyalty began to crack. Then came the moment that broke what little was left. A dramatic intrusion at the Park District building. A meeting with no quorum. A room not meant for her. Yet there she was, storming in, uninvited and unrestrained. The crowd's response was immediate and volatile. Boos filled the air. People shouted. Some even hurled objects. But Henyard didn't flinch. She tried to steamroll her agenda through, anyway, forcing key appointments like a new police chief without due process. Her refusal to respect the rules only deepened the chaos. What could have been a standard meeting turned into a public meltdown. Her unwillingness to work with others, or even follow basic protocol, was now undeniable to everyone watching. For many residents, it was the final betrayal. The hope they once carried, that Henyard would bring meaningful change, was gone. Replaced by disillusionment and disgust. The town's political structure was crumbling under the weight of her decisions. That chaotic night signaled more than dysfunction. It was the moment Dalton realized its government had become ungovernable under her leadership. Whatever credibility she had left had vanished, but Henyard refused to step back. She doubled down. Even as the headlines worsened and legal troubles stacked higher, she stayed in the ring. Investigations deepened, financial scandals multiplied. The court stepped in, issuing a restraining order to curb her authority, requiring board approval before major decisions. But restraint was never her style. She resisted. She defied. Her battle wasn't just legal now, it was existential. Could she recover from this? Could she win back a town that had clearly moved on? The answer felt less and less hopeful with each passing day. Her political career, once painted as bold and transformative, now looked more like a cautionary tale about unchecked ambition. Henyard had become a national symbol of how quickly leadership can spiral into chaos. The future of Dalton, its very identity, now felt uncertain, and the questions didn't stop. Could trust ever be restored? Could new leadership repair the damage, or was the fracture permanent? The town stood at a crossroads, battered, divided, and unsure if healing was even possible. Because for all the damage Henyard had done, one thing was certain. The storm wasn't over. In fact, for Dalton, the worst may still be ahead.